want to do is start you off with a different way to study the portion. And as you study, you can break it out kind of differently so that you can come back and read it. So you're going to have to do maybe a little writing like I put together here, okay? And so we start off in this parsha with before Moses died. Now, at this point, God came. God loved the people, and God became, and then Moses prayed, and then Moses asked. And it goes on, as you read this parsha, again Moses prayed, then God tested, and then Moses asked, and Moses said, and then Moses called, and Moses likened, and Moses exhorted, and Moses blessed, and then Moses called again, and then Moses told, and then Moses prayed again, and Moses said, not just once, but said twice. And at this point, this brings us to the end of the parsha, to where Moses went up. And then Moses, now things change. It's a dialogue between Moses and God. And God told, so Moses, at the command of God, then God buried him. And Moses was, and Joshua was, and then there's a statement in the parsha, which we will go back and read it in its context. Never again was there a prophet like unto Moshe, and then I inserted until Yeshua, whom God sent, and then Moses displayed. Now, the Haftorah is kind of broke out the same way. So let me give it to you in context. Before he died, Moses, the man of God, told the Israelites farewell with this blessing. God came from Sinai, shone on them from Seir, appeared from Paran, and approached from Rehoboth Kodesh. Lightning flashing from God's right. Then God loved the people, holding them in God's hand. The people followed in God's steps, accepting God's Torah as a heritage of the congregation of Yaakov. Then God became, and it tells us that God became king in Yeshurun, when the chiefs of the tribes of Israel assembled. And then Moses prayed that the tribe of Reuben survive, though its numbers are very few. Then Moses asked God to hear the voice of the tribe of Yehudah, restore it, and help it against its foes. Then Moses prayed that God would be with the Levites who held God's Urim and Thummim. God tested at Massah and Meribah, who disregarded family ties to carry out God's will. who would teach God's Torah to Israel, and who would offer God's incense and offerings. Then Moses asked God to bless their substance, favor their undertaking, and smite their enemies. And Moses said again that God loved and always protected the tribe of Benjamin, who rested securely beside God, between God's shoulders. Moses called God to bless the tribe of Joseph with the dew, the yield of the sun, the crops in its season, the bounty of the hills, and the favor of the presence in the burning bush. And Moses likened the tribe of the firstling bull with horns like a wild ox, who gores the people from one end of the earth to the other. Then Moses exhorted the tribe of Zebulun to rejoice on its journeys, and the tribe of Issachar in its tents. They invited their kin to the mountain where they offered sacrifices of success. They drew from the riches of the sea and the hidden hoards of the sand. Then Moses again blessed. And he blessed the God who enlarged the tribe of Gad, who was posed like a lion, who chose the best, the portion of the revered chieftains, who executed God's judgment for Israel. Then Moses called the tribe of Dan a lion's whelp that kept from Bashan. Then Moses told the tribe of Naphtali that they would be sated with favor and blessed by God to take possession of the west and the south. Now Moses prayed again that the tribe of Asher be the favorite among the tribes, dip its feet in oil, and have door bolts of iron and copper and security all of its days. Then Moses said that there was none like God, riding through the heavens to help. Then Moses said again that God is an everlasting refuge and support, who drove out the enemy. Thus Israel dwelt untroubled in safety in a land of grain, wine, under heaven's dripping dew, who was like Israel, a people delivered by God. Then God, protecting, shield and sword, triumphed over Israel's cringing enemies. Then Moses went up, and now the scene changes from the steppes of Moab to Mount Nebo, and God showed him the whole land. God told Moshe that this was the land that God had sworn to assign to the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So Moses, the servant of God, died there in the land of Moab at God's command, and God buried him in the valley of the land of Moab near Beth Peor, although no one knew his burial place. Moses was 120 120 years old when he died, but his eyes were undimmed and his vigor unabated. The Israelites mourned for 30 days. Joshua was filled with the spirit of wisdom because Moses had laid his hands on him, and the Israelites heeded Joshua. Never again did there arise in Israel a prophet like Moshe, until Yeshua, whom God singled out face to face for signs and portents, as well as Moshe, that God sent him to display against Pharaoh and Egypt, and for all the awesome power Moses displayed before Israel. And that brings us to a close of the reading of the portion. Now, when you break it out like this, I would hope that it would give you clarity in the reading by seeing the statements like Moshe said, and then reading the text that went along with it will give you clarity in your understanding of the portion. By breaking it out, it stops you from just reading it and just going through it. It makes you want to think about what is being said in this portion. Now, the Haftorah is broke out the same way. After Moses' death, God told Moses' minister Joshua to cross the Jordan with the Israelites. Then God would give them every place on which they stepped, from the Negev desert to Lebanon, from the Euphrates to the Mediterranean Sea. God enjoined Joshua to be strong and of good courage, for none would be able to stand in his way, as God would lead him all of his life. Then God exhorted Joshua strictly to observe God's Torah and to meditate on it day and night, so that he might succeed.
Amen.
Joshua told his officers to have the Israelites prepare food, for within 3 days they were to cross the Jordan to possess the land that God was giving them. Joshua told the Reubenites, the Gadites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh to remember their commitment to Moshe, whereby God would give them their land on the east side of the Jordan, and their wives, children, and cattle would stay there. But the men would fight at the forefront of the Israelites until God gave the Israelites the land of Israel. They answered Joshua that they would follow the commands, his commands, just as they followed Moshe. Whoever rebelled against Joshua's commands would be put to death. Now the parsha goes on in Deuteronomy 33:4. It reports that Moshe commanded us a Torah. Torah, Zavah, Lanu, Moshe. And in the Haftorah, in Joshua 1:7, God told Joshua to observe the law that Moshe commanded you. Torah, Asher, Zavaka, Moshe. In Deuteronomy 34:4, God told Moshe that he shall not cross over. Lo, Tov, Avar, or Vor. The Haftorah in Joshua 1:2, God told Joshua to cross over. The Parsha in Deuteronomy 34:5 and the Haftorah in Joshua 1:1 and 1:13, okay, both call Moshe the servant of the Lord, Eved Adonai. And the Parsha in Deuteronomy 34:5 and the Haftorah in Joshua 1:1-2 both reported the death of Moshe. So, here we have the breakouts and the declarations either by Moshe, Joshua, or by God to give us clarity of the portion. So Joshua was encouraged to be strong and resolute. Okay? And he was successful. Why? Because he observed to do according to all of the Torah, which Moses, my servant, commanded him. We are commanded the same. In Deuteronomy 17:18-20, that God calls us kings and priests in his kingdom, then we should write him a copy, God that is, a copy of the Torah in a book. And it shall be with him and shall read therein all the days of his life, that he may learn to keep all the words of this Torah and these statutes to do them, and that he turn not aside from the command to the right hand or to the left, to the end that he may prolong his days in his kingdom, he and his children in the midst of Israel. And there are many points here that we need to take serious. One of them is the kingdom, that we will live and be prolonged. Okay? That his children shall also be prolonged, and also they will succeed. Now, we know that in the Parsha, okay, a number of things happen in the Haftorah. The Haftorah is in reality a celebration of life. And it is truly fitting to end and summarize the life of the greatest prophet that preceded Yeshua. There is also a word of advice here, that before we accept the testimony of any other prophet, we would do well to measure it against the words of Moshe. If a prophet or teacher does not agree with the testimony of Moshe, we should not accept the prophecy or the teaching.
Amen.
It is so odd that the world will come to believe that Rabbi Shaul or Paul, probably the most prolific of the apostles, his accusers falsely claimed that he taught against the Torah, circumcision, the temple, the Jewish customs, which he defended himself against in the last chapter of the book of Acts. Okay? Go and read his defense. And you will know that Shaul, like Yeshua, stood in agreement with the testimony of Moshe. Now, people have always been and continue to be saved by grace through faith. And the greatest of these we can look back to, Abraham, is mentioned in Galatians chapter 3. What in God's plan changed for the salvation of his believers? Nothing. It is still the same. Malachi chapter 3, verse 6 and 7. For I am the Lord, I change not. Therefore you sons of Yaakov are not consumed. Even from the days of your father you have gone away from my ordinances and have not kept them. Return unto me, and I will return unto you, says the Lord of hosts. So, we find that the Lord told Yehoshua to encourage him after his loss of Moshe, his friend. Now let's think about this. These 4 encouragements, okay, are read every year during the celebration of Sukkot. They are Joshua 1:6, 1:7, 1:9, and verse 1:18. Okay? Be strong and of good courage. Only be thou strong and very courageous. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and of good courage. Be not afraid. Only be strong and of good courage.
Thank you, Father.
Hey, Bob.
Yeah.
What's going on?
Well, Monica's friend is probably experiencing a miscarriage.
See what?
She's probably experiencing a miscarriage. We don't know yet.
Okay.
That's all the signs of it. They're checking her into the ER and that, and she's scared.
We pray that God be with them and God encourage them and give shalom.
Amen.
And that God will preserve and give life. Amen?
Amen.
All right. Now, when we look at the Lord's urging to Yehoshua, be strong and of good courage, okay, it is also for us today that we need to be able to be strong and of good courage. Now, we are celebrating the time that he, Yeshua, dwelt among us in the first century, and the time when he will come again and dwell with us. Like Yehoshua, the Lord has promised that he will not forsake us. But that doesn't mean it's going to be easy, does it? Sure, the Lord gave assurances and promises to be with them while conquering the land. Now, but they still had to enter and conquer it. And what does that mean to us? That means war. Joshua had to lead Israel's sons into a long and bloody battles with people who the Lord wanted to displace. Is that not what's going to happen here in the future? Okay? They were not good stewards of God's throne. They were not good shepherds on the mountains of the Lord. They were a defilement to the place that belonged to the Lord, the land of Israel. Now we've seen the end of the story, have we not? And by our celebration at Sukkot, we celebrate. But that doesn't mean it's going to be easy to get to the end of the matter. Yeshua never sugarcoated the truth, did he? So why would you want to me to do it for you or anybody else. Now, we shouldn't and we should never have to. That apparently does not sit well with people in general. But if the Good Shepherd followed the pattern, so should we. Now, do you want pretty words, or do you want someone who really cares for your welfare? Okay? So we should follow the pattern of Moshe, should we not?
Yes.
Okay? He never sugarcoated it. So, we find in Deuteronomy 33 verse 1, and this is the blessing wherewith Moshe, the man of the Lord, blessed the children of Israel before his death. Okay? Now, what is the blessing this verse is really speaking about? Now, on the last day of Moshe's life, he completed the writing of the Torah. He taught the song of Moshe to the children of Israel.
Amen.
Then he blessed each of the tribes before ascending Mount Nebo and facing his death. There was one tribe that didn't get a blessing. Does anybody know which one that one is? Huh? Shimon, yes. Now, then he blessed. The blessing of Moshe left behind is the Torah. The revelation of God, the source of everything that we believe, and that you can find peace in it. Now, Deuteronomy 33 verse 2 says, and the Lord came from Sinai, rose up from Seir unto them, and shined forth from Mount Paran. He came with 10,000s of his saints from his right hand with a fiery Torah for them. Now, how does this verse point to a Messianic era? Now, the sages of old understood this verse primarily as a reference to the giving of the Torah at Mount Sinai. This led them to wonder why Moshe explicitly mentioned Mount Seir, which belonged to the Edomites, or Mount Paran, which belonged to the Ishmaelites. And then he connected them with the giving of the Torah. So what do we find here? That this verse is another reference to that which the Torah was offered in the wilderness, outside of Yaakov's inheritance. It was offered to the nations as well. And when the nations present their defense, the Torah was not offered to them, but only to Israel. The Lord will reply that he did offer it to them, and they refused by not submitting to it. Now, the overriding point of this teaching is that the Lord holds mankind accountable for the revelation that he has bestowed upon them. The Lord knows the heart and the actions of all mankind, and does not turn his eyes from them. He gives great reward to those who obey Shema. He withholds eternity from those who rejects his ways. And that is a point to the sovereignty of God. Now, how is this significant for us today? Deuteronomy 33 verse 4. Moses commanded us the Torah, even the inheritance of the congregation of Yaakov. Now, how is that significant? Well, it tells us that the Torah is more of a heritage than an inheritance. Since it belongs to the generations before us and after us. It is not like property that can be disposed of or squandered. It was given to an entire nation. It was not given to an exclusive group or club or some specific number of heirs. So in that way, we find that it provides equal responsibility for everyone. And that responsibility is for us to maintain or find means to pass it on to the next generation. Now, Judaism signifies its eternal readiness to carry the burden of the yoke of the Lord's commandments by proclaiming, teaching, that the verse expresses the conviction that not only will we be loyal to God's teachings, and that we will transmit it from there to others. Remember, we will assure that it will remain with our children and theirs to carry it on from generation to generation as long as the Lord tarries. So what is that connection? What is that connects us to Him as King over the people? Deuteronomy 33, verse 5. And He was king in Yeshurun when the heads of the people and the tribes of Israel were gathered together. So what is it that connects us? The sages teach us that the Lord's unity is revealed in this world. Why? To extend that there is unity amongst His ambassadors in the world, which are we. The believers who allow Him to reign in their lives, when His people are united, His presence is unmistakably dictated or detected. One of the great gifts to mankind is this verse in the Torah. Leviticus 19:18. And you will love your neighbor as yourself. And to give the Torah to your neighbor is showing him that you love him.
Amen.
Now, when we love each other, and we are generally happy for our friends' successes, this causes a great perception of the Lord in the world, does it not? Now, what happens, if we do the reverse of this? When we see ourselves in a dog-eat-dog world, do we not? We take a step down and pass the canine world to the next generation. We lose that heavenly radiance which shows that He made us in His image. And we are disrespecting His handiwork. Now, this week, we complete the annual reading of the Torah. And as soon as we finish this parsha, we will start again at the beginning next week, Bereshit. Now we read the Torah in a continuous cycle. Why? Because the circle is a symbol of eternity. It goes on forever. It is eternal. Just as the one who gave us the Torah, He is eternal. So the circle that we find throughout each year of the Torah symbolizes the existence of eternity. It starts nowhere and it finishes nowhere. The circle is also a symbol of equality. Every point in the circle is from its center. Okay? So if you're standing in the center of the circle, you look this way, you look that way, you look this way, that way. It is all a symbol of the circle of eternity and our point in position within the framework of it. Then we find in this parsha that these blessings went to Reuben and Judah. Now, like Jacob's, these blessings completed the construction of the tabernacle. And this was 4 times in the Torah Moses blessed the children of Israel. Exodus 49, Leviticus 9, Deuteronomy 1, Deuteronomy 33. Now the tribe of Reuben was in much more danger during the time of the conquest in Israel when they entered the land. Why? Because their wives and children were left behind. In addition, they volunteered to be at the head of the invasion, into the land of Canaan. The tribe of Judah was also at the forefront of Israel's forces. Moses prayed that the Lord would hear the prayers of the men of Judah when they went into battle and bring them back in peace.
Amen.
Now, the Levites' blessing. Okay? Now, what was it? You find it in Deuteronomy 33, 8 to 11. Now, with this blessing, Moshe was in effect reversing the curse of being scattered that Jacob had put upon the Levites in Genesis 49, verse 5 through 8. Now, you would think, well, what did he do? He contradicted Yaakov's prophecy. Now the Levites were to be scattered among the tribes, but the scattering was for the purpose of serving the Lord and the teachings of the Torah to all of Israel. So in actuality, you see something partially, but you don't see the end of the matter until God concludes it. And then you can say, oh, they are scattered throughout the tribes of Israel, fulfilling the prophecy of Yaakov. Now for Benjamin, he blessed the Benjamites with security. He prayed that they would be near the Lord and rest between his shoulders. Benjamin's territory was the most strategic prize in the land of Israel. In addition, the holy city of Jerusalem and the place where the Lord's divine presence would rest was destined to be built within the territory of Benjamin. A lot of people think it would be with Judah. Huh?
I thought it was on the border.
You thought it was what?
On the border.
On the border?
Yeah, between the two.
Well, no, the scriptures tell us it was in Benjamin. Maybe close to the border, but, okay, it is taught that he received this privilege because Benjamin was the only son of Yaakov to be born inside the land of Israel.
Wow.
He also had a part in the sale of Yosef. He did not have a part. And he continued to comfort his father in his old age. Now these are virtues that place where the divine presence rests would hope to be fostered, would they not? Now, when we look at Yosef, why is his blessing so long? Deuteronomy 33, verse 13 through 17. Moses' blessing over Joseph was the longest he gave to any of the tribes. Just like Jacob's blessing over Yosef was longer than the blessing he gave to his other sons. Now, it most likely was longer because Moses told the tribe of Joseph, or Yosef, that their blessing regarding the territory would be expressed through Ephraim and Manasseh. He blessed Yosef with fertility, prosperity, military success. Several of the blessings echoed Jacob's words over Yosef in Genesis chapter 49. So, now we come to Zebulun and Issachar. We find, what is their blessing? Now Moses, like Jacob or Yaakov, tied Zebulun and Issachar's fortunes together. He blessed them with wealth and commerce in their territories. But they were interdependent upon one another. Why? Well, we find that one brother financed the other one to learn and study Torah. We find that that is part of maybe the blessing that would be bestowed upon the people in the congregation who support the work of expanding the Torah so that others could come and learn in their giving. Now, let's look at Gad. Gad's is a long one as well. Now, Gad's territory was on the east side of the Jordan in the land of Sihon and Og of Bashan. It extended so far eastward that it was larger than the territory of any of the western tribes. Thus Moshe blessed the Lord. Blessed be he that enlarges Gad's borders. Now, as a tribe, they lived on the border. Gad was like a fierce lion, defending its own territory and that of the neighboring tribes. The Lord grants gifts commensurate with the responsibility taken. They undertook the defense of the territories of their fellow tribes. Moses blessed them with extraordinary strength to carry out the task. If they had thought only of themselves, they may well have lacked even sufficient might for that. They indeed became the mighty warriors like the blessing suggests, and their territory was Israel's first conquest. Gad chose this area, and coincidentally, Moses would be interned there in the hidden grave that the blessing suggests. But when we look towards the transfiguration of Yeshua on the mountain, who do we see standing there? We see Moses and Elijah. So, God may have buried the body of Moses, okay, and he took Elijah up in a whirlwind, okay. We both find them in resurrected states of glorification on the mountain with Yeshua. Now coming back to verse 21 of Deuteronomy 33, he provided the first part of himself because there in the portion of the lawgiver was he seated or buried. During the conquest of Eretz Israel, the mighty tribe of Gad marched among the frontliners as well. So you had Reuben, Judah, and Gad. They went into the battle first. Now, we find Dan was next blessed. He called him a lion's whelp, and he leaps from Bashan. He also mentions Naphtali, who's satisfied with favor and full with the blessings of the Lord, possesses thou the west and the south. Now, what is the nature of Dan's blessing? Like the Gadites, Moses blessed the Danites with military power. And he compared it like a lion. According to some, it refers to the nimbleness of them. The adventurous spirit for which the tribe of Dan was noted was exemplified by what prophet came out of Dan? Or judge? Samson did. Now their territory was along the Mediterranean coast, so that Dan was the first tribe to encountered by the seafaring marauders. Now we find the blessing of the tribe of Naphtali with an inheritance in, I consider, one of the most beautiful places in Israel, the Galilee, which contains some of the best farmland in all of Eretz Israel. They also included a portion of the coast of the Sea of Galilee for their fishing. Now, we come to Asher. Moses bequeathed contentment to them, saying, let Asher be blessed with children. Let him be acceptable to his brethren. Asher was a large tribe, and Moshe blessed them that they should remain so and not be diminished. Now we find that Asher's blessing is connected with the meaning of his name, which means blessing, happiness, contentment. Now one reason for this happiness would be that Asher would dip his feet in oil, a reference to the abundance of the good olive groves in Asher's region. Now, the area was from Acre on the coast to Tyre in the Mediterranean coast, and Asher supplied all of the tribe with such abundance and delicious produce that everyone blessed him for it. We find also that the fig trees grew there. Can anybody tell me how many varieties of figs there are in Israel? I know my wife can.
Dates.
Are dates. 100 minimum types of dates grow in the land of Israel.
And they know the difference by the bark on the tree.
Yeah. So you look at the bark on the tree, and you'll know the difference between one date and another one. Now, we had some dates the other night
Oh, they were so good.
over at
The Keplers.
Kepler's house. So, if you don't like dates, I'm sorry, you're missing out.
I don't think so.
And figs.
Yeah.
Figs are great too. Okay?
Ours is fresh.
And when you eat them in the land, like me and Brenda did when we were there, it's they make jam out of figs.
And they make egg honey too.
Yeah, out of dates as well.
Fig Newtons.
They do? Yes, they do. And Ireland loves them.
Oh, yeah. Not.
Now, when Asher was born, Leah said she was the most fortunate of women. Now Moshe expresses the hope that Leah's blessing be expanded until all of the men and women of Israel would bless Asher. So what does this give us as we come to the conclusion of these 2 chapters of our parsha? Moses continues the tradition of Yaakov by blessing the tribes of Israel. And he did that before his death, just like Jacob did. Now, these are not just descriptions of each tribe's essence, okay? But they are combined with a definition of its role within the nation of Israel. They are about to inhabit. Now, I would say unto you that all of these blessings, and as we go through and break them out as I did, and we read them in their context, all of these blessings flow down from them to you. And that everything that we have described, we should be able to inherit from them to us. So, there is one tribe that did not receive a blessing from Moshe. Shimon. And why? Especially being in the world. You can take all these other things and they should flow down to you. But for Shimon, you need to stay well away from it. And so what was it? They were central to the massive immorality of worshiping the idol Baal Peor. Another explanation is that this tribe's population was extremely small. Some of their cities were scattered throughout the land of Israel. They received blessing together with their host tribe, Yehuda, where they would live. Moses' last words to this beloved people are of reassurance that the Lord will more than recompense his people for all of the suffering that they will endure. Moses ascends Mount Nebo in the land of Moab. And the Lord shows him prophetically all that happens to Israel in the future, both in peace and in time of trouble until the resurrection. Now Moses dies there, and to this day no one knows the place of his burial. Why? They would have made a shrine out of it and they worship it. Okay? So, that his grave should not become a shrine, as I said. And who wish to make a prophet into a god. And that's what they would have done. His stature did not come from Israel's blind faith or the events that were witnessed constantly during the 40-year journey through the desert. Until Yeshua, Moses was the only one able to speak to God whenever he wanted. But do you know now you have the ability to speak to God whenever?
Amen.
Okay? So, we do have a saying that we do at the end of the Torah. And it is customary for the congregation to proclaim it. Now the question is, why do we do this? Well, the first and simplest explanation is tradition. Okay? We're taught that no word, not even one single letter in the Torah is not without meaning. Right? We even have a saying that one can find Messiah in every page of the Torah. Now, if we are pretty much just saying the same words 3 times, we might want to know more about this word. Kazak. Okay, that's the word. Kazak. As with the Hebrew words, it has multiplying meanings. Now the word carries the meaning of following concept. To be bound to be attached to support, to preserve, strengthen, or strong, courageous, to conquer, to hold fast, to retain, to keep, to prove helpful, to uphold, to encourage. And they can be translated as all of these, or it can be translated as one or the other. So I would tell you that all of these things we probably would struggle with, to be bound to the Torah, to be attached to it, because it is a support. It will preserve you. You need to be strong or strengthened. And God says, be courageous. Why? To conquer. What do you need to conquer? The world, your flesh. If you hold fast to the Torah, to retain it, to keep it, it will prove helpful to you. And it will also uphold you. And it will become an encouragement to you. So when we proclaim this phrase that we're going to give audience to here shortly, we are stating that we will be bound to what we read in Scripture. That we will retain and keep the words we heard. We are stating that we will let the Holy Word strengthen us, preserve us, and be helpful to us in our lives. Because these words that we study week after week or daily, okay, we will be courageous and be bound to them. They should become part of us. It's been said that even the white spaces between the letters are filled with meaning. I believe that's very incredible. And that is our Torah portion. I hope that encourages you, gives you strength and light and purpose. Okay? As we conclude this year's cycle of eternity, the words of the Torah.